Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Which One Works. This is episode 13, and today I want to look at a few images from the Palouse. I just got back from leading a workshop there during harvest season, and it is a fantastic time to be in the Palouse. Golds, yellows, browns, shapes, textures, patterns, there's everything that you could want as a photographic artist. So today I want to talk through just a few of the images that I brought back with me and show you some of the thought processes that I go through when I'm selecting a photo to develop and then post either on my website or on my social media platforms. So let's go ahead and jump in, take a look, and see which one works. All right, here we go. So for those of you that know the Palouse, you know that it is a bunch of rolling hills across the landscape. And one of the challenges and one of the rewards of photographing up in the Palouse is distilling that landscape and isolating a portion of that landscape to show the nuances and the subtlety and the folds and the shading and the light that happens across the rolling wheat fields. And so that's what I've done here. I put on my 1:400 and I isolated a portion of this particular field because I loved the overlapping wheat fields. And you can see, the tops of these hills are brighter than the valleys between them. And so that gives you this sense of depth in an image, which is fantastic. And it's what you try to do in the Palouse. So I have two images here that I wanted to show you and talk about real quick and see, if one works better than the other. So here's the first image and here's the second image. Okay, and both of these are not really processed. I touched them just a little bit, but really not processed. So a lot of these images come down to feeling, what feels right, and where can you infer sort of the intent and the message for the image. So of course, I have these beautiful folds of the wheat right in the middle of the shot, which is the main subject here. That's great. I've got a sky, and the sky it's neither here nor there. It's not great, it's not bad, it's just almost a non-entity. But it's a part of this shot because it gives context. The other key element in this shot is this line of wheat right down here at the bottom. And because it's a darker line and it makes it more prominent in the photograph. So it looks like a compositional element, which it is. I considered this when I shot this photograph, and I wanted to include it to give some context. Now, in doing that, though, I brought this element into the shot, and my subject was really these rolling wheat fields and the light and the nuance up here. And then I've got this strong graphical element running along the bottom. Yes, it gives viewers context for this is a wheat field that's partially harvested, but still, compositionally, this is a really strong element. So I'm a little on the fence of this. I like this shot, don't get me wrong, but is it the best? I'm not sure yet. This is one that I'm going to have to sit with for a while to see if I really truly like it for my portfolio. To contrast that, I've got the same sort of thing going on here. I've got these folds. I don't have as dramatic of a fold in the landscape here. I've got a nice overlap here, which is great. Again, I have a little bit of sky, which is a non-entity, and I have this harvest line running through. But notice how in this shot, I've got a little bit, the harvest line is not quite as emphasized as it is in this shot. Here it's big, it's prominent. Here it's less, it's more subtle. This is about, to me, this image is more about a flowing landscape during harvest. This is about the folds of the landscape. I've got more sky in this shot, got less sky in this shot. The thing that I don't really like as much in this shot is how much foreground I have. You know, I could crop this up from the bottom and make it a funny aspect ratio. I could preserve the aspect ratio and come up from the lower right. But then I'm going to lose part of this important fold right here. So both of these to me work. I don't know if any one stands out more than the other. It's a very different feel for each of these two shots that are kind of employing the same techniques. The other thing to pay attention to is look at how much space I have between this harvest line and the bottom of the frame in this shot. Very comforting, very relaxing. Here, it's a dark line that's really close to the edge of the frame, which introduces a little bit of tension into the photograph. And I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. It's just something that is. So it's something to consider as I evaluate these images. So I'd be curious in the comments, let me know which one you like better and why. I would really appreciate that. All right, let's go on to the next set of images. Here I've got some tractor lines in the wheat fields, and this is very much a graphical image, and the whole point of this shot was to capture these tire tracks going through the wheat. So here's the first shot, here's the second shot. All right, let's go back to the first one. So the first one, you know, I've got a reasonable amount of sky, and yeah, I do have a dust spot right up here and here and here and here. I got dust spots all over because this is the Palouse during August, and you will get dust spots on your lenses and on your sensor. It's just a fact of life up there if you are changing your lenses at all anywhere outside of a hermetically sealed room. So let's deconstruct this shot just a little bit. You know, the main elements of this shot to me are these curves, and this is why I shot this scene. Is I loved these curves and figured that I could use them as a graphical element in my shot. So these are great, number one. Number two, I've got these two tracks faintly leading out into the back of the frame. I've got this diagonal track coming down here in the lower left, which, you know, I liked the idea of having these angles because it creates a V right here with this tire track, and we love V's. But look at how tight this is in the lower left corner. There's not a lot of space. There's not a lot of the tire track included to really resolve itself quickly for anybody looking at this shot. So to me, this whole image, because I have so much sky, it kind of looks like, hey, here's a wheat field with tire tracks in the context of the larger landscape. By taking out a little bit of the sky, I've changed the emphasis in my mind. This is about the tire tracks in the wheat. I have far less sky. My camera's tilted down just a little bit to include more of this diagonal track that's coming in the lower left. So I've brought it up out of the corner and gave it more room to resolve itself in the photograph. And right in the middle of the frame is this curvy track right here. And subconsciously, we know that that's going to be the subject. So this is all about the tire tracks in context of the larger landscape, versus this, which is sort of the landscape that has tire tracks in it. It changes the emphasis slightly and subtly, but it's an important distinction for me. Both of these shots I do like for different reasons, but overall the intent of why I took this photograph I think is encompassed in this particular image, and that's why I think this one works better than the previous one. All right, one last example for you. The Perringer barn. I've shot this barn so many times. In today's why I shot this, I shot this a little differently this time, partly to use as an example in this video. So this is normally a difficult high contrast scene. The barn is facing east. The sun can be overhead, and it's very, very contrasty and shadowy. This year we had some decent foreground and midground around the barn, so I wanted to shoot it. And so let's talk through a couple iterations of different compositions around this barn. One of the things, if you're shooting a house or a barn or a building or some other inanimate object, we oftentimes infer humanistic qualities to non-humanistic things. So I could say that this barn has a face, and that face is right here. And, if you shoot wildlife, you shoot people, you know that you want to have your subject facing into the majority of the frame. So saying that, this barn should be over here in the left quadrant facing into the majority of the frame. But I put it on the right to give it a different feel. What you do when you put the face looking to the short side of the image is that you have the potential for a viewer to instantly, their eyes go wherever the subject is facing, and they can go out of the frame and you lose the viewer. But for this, I wanted to give it a try. Yeah, please ignore the power lines also, by the way. I have not edited these at all, so there's a lot of cleanup that needs to get done. But here's one shot. Here's the second shot. Here's the third shot. And here's the fourth shot. So let's go back and talk about this one. This one, the barn is fairly large in the frame. I've got some good wheat in the foreground, giving it context. I think this looks great. The thing I don't really care for as much is, see this little dark cleft in the landscape right here, and how the point of the barn intersects that dark cleft. That, to me, if I would have caught that in the field, I would have moved left or right, probably to the right a little bit, just to have the point of the barn intersect into the wheat fields, not into this tonal interruption that I have going on right here. But I didn't catch that in the field. Now, to contrast this with the next shot, I zoomed out just a little bit. And what this did was it gave me more sky, of course. It gave me more foreground, which I really kind of like because more of the wheat stalks resolve themselves. It also gave me more space between the face and the edge of the frame right here. So this feels more relaxing to me. It feels more centered and grounded. This is a little bit more, there's a slight little bit more tension in this because the barn is larger and is closer to the edge of the frame. So instantly, I kind of like this shot a little bit better. And what this shot is really more about the barn in context of the landscape. Being a little bit wider, this shot is about the landscape that happens to have a barn in it. It's just the order of the words that change slightly that give the image a slightly different feel. So the third horizontal shot is this. And again, I'm zoomed out, but I moved a little bit more. I moved my camera a little bit to the left to include more of this hillside, to think about, hey, should I give more context, landscape context, to the barn? So I wanted to include a little bit more of the hillside. It brought this a little bit closer to the edge of the frame, but because the barn is smaller, it doesn't introduce as much tension as that first shot did. And lastly, I shot it vertically. And I shot this vertically because look at the sky. There are some clouds and some interest in the sky that I'll be able to bring out in post, and that could look really nice. So that was the first reason I went vertically. The second reason is look at these tire tracks. They're sort of acting like a leading line going back into the image. So I wanted to capture those, and the only way to do that really is to go in this vertical orientation. And also in this shot, notice the tip of the barn. See, I'm not intersecting this interruption in the landscape. It's got a really smooth border right around the roof of this barn, which I do like a lot. It helps simplify, it helps calm the image down. And to finish off that sequence of barn shots, here is the way that I like to do it right. Or at least right for me. You know, notice I have the roof of the barn that's got just a nice background around it. I've got some decent color and interest in the sky. But most importantly, the barn is on the left-hand side of the composition, and its face, right here, the face, is looking into the majority of the frame. So I've got all of this space for it to quote-unquote look into. So that's the way I like to shoot this particular barn. All right, so there you go. Which one works? Number 13. If you guys have any comments, please leave them down below. I'd love to hear from you. Let me know which ones work for you and why, or which ones don't work and why. I really appreciate that kind of feedback as well. And if you're new to my channel, please feel free to subscribe, hit the like button, do all that kind of great stuff. Let's keep the content going. And with that, I hope you all have a great day. All right, bye-bye.